You're listening to the Evidence of Alignment podcast, dedicated to witnessing the changes that alignment brings to one's life when we choose heart over hustle, honor our inner guidance, and fearlessly express our special gifts and unique service. From corporate leaders turned healers to artists serving their communities, each guest is proof that our natural, authentic self is our greatest contribution.
We are the truth. We are all one.
Now, we dive into the messy, beautiful journey of leaving the familiar, trusting that inner voice, and turning our gifts into service. It's time to align.
It is time to awaken.
It's my pleasure to introduce my guest today. On her YouTube channel, The Conscious Radical, she explores waking culture and the intersection of personal growth and social awareness, marking them not as separate, but as one in the same path. Her work resonates with much of my own, but while most of my knowing is intuitive, hers is backed by studies in the classics and explained with an expertive eloquence. We'll see how deeply we can dive into some of the following with her today, because each of these could really be their own podcasts. The divine feminine has been buried and repressed, but her reemergence is imminent. There's a force whose survival requires our submission and/or ignorance. Truth outlasts its oppressors. Our awareness of our attention is our power to break through control systems. Please welcome podcaster, corporate coach, and author of The Awakening, a mythical novella, Claire Salerno. Thank you for joining me, Claire.
Thank you so much for having me, Beth. Thank you.
I was hoping you would share first a bit about your background, and you can feel free to go back as far as you wish. I love to hear how, paths diverge from what you're doing now, where you started. So was this always an interest or path?
I think it was, but like all these things, it's not until you get older that all the parts seem to connect with each other. And so I've been very fortunate. I've been brought up in a family of women, and we had this sort of Roman Catholic side, the Maltese side, and then we had the very British side, which is my mum. And my mum has always been very spiritual. I think she was absolutely ahead of the game, way back when. And as a result, I've had that influence. I've always had that curiosity to want to find out more. And even though I was brought up in a very sort of standard, going to school and learning about the church and things like that, I got to a point where, certainly when I went to college and I studied classics at college, that I was like, everything that I thought I knew, I didn't know. And it was a bit, there was almost a form of grief. I felt like when I was looking at the archaic religions, and I was looking at ISIS, and I was looking at all these different stories, I was thinking, oh, hang on a minute, these are very similar to the stories that I was brought up with. How can this be true? How can this be true? And I just had a fascination with ancient Rome and Greece and the gods and the goddesses and things like that, and how human they were and how spiteful they were and all of these different things. And then obviously we have the other side of it, where I was going to church with my godparents and the ritualistic side of things. And I think that's something I'm really conscious of whenever I talk about the things that I do talk about. It's not to slight anybody's beliefs. I think if you have a belief and it gives you comfort, absolutely do that. Always do what feels right for you. For me, it's exploring and having that curiosity to say, well, how does this work? And how does this work? And I think I've always had that in my mind. I've explored, witchcraft and spells and myths, and I love magic. I love anything to, any programs to do with magic. I'm there. I've got ridiculous amounts of books because I'm just fascinated with it, because I do feel, now whether this is just my intuition or whether this is something made up in a childlike brain, I don't know, but I do believe in that sense of power and magic that we have. I do believe that we have these abilities that have been suppressed in some way, shape or form, whether that's been suppressed by the environments that we've been living in, or whether we've suppressed it ourselves in our evolution. But I think that for me is really interesting. And with my work, I've always worked with people. I've always worked with people for people. It lights me up. It gives me purpose to know that I'm supporting other people to be the best that they can possibly be. And I think in that sense, it tended towards the corporates, working within organizations and working really broadly with organizations, but it was always the individual, working with the individual, whether through coaching them or through delivery of training, and that's even the sort of corporate side of leadership development and leadership training, where we look at different standards and different models of how people can work, but trying to feed in the human consciousness within everything that I do. And as you might appreciate, when you're working in the corporate world, you can't necessarily be spiritual. And you have to be quite, science-based, evidence-based. So yeah, I love that. I agree with that. But what I find fascinating now is how science is catching up with all of our, what our ancestors intuitively knew. And now the science is confirming it. And that for me is like, aha, that's just wonderful. So when I see something that resonates in that way, I'm just like, this is beautiful. People intuitively knew this centuries ago. Science is now confirming it. And that for me is just wonderful. Wonderful.
What has it been like to begin to synthesize some of this ancient material, like the Gnostic text, for instance, and see so many parallels to our world today? Because that's what's been astounding me. It's like, wow.
Indeed. And I think this is where, and this is a journey for me as well. I am not saying I have all the answers. I'm still exploring every day. And when I read something, it's like you can read something and then life carries on, and then something else will happen and life carries on, and then something else will happen, and then all of a sudden the parts connect and you have an aha moment when you go, hang on a minute, that connects to that connects to that. Why didn't I connect these before? And I seem to be having, I call them my downloads, but they're just aha moments, and they come at the most irregular points in time. If I'm in the shower and I've got no pen and paper, so I can't write my thoughts down quick enough, and I'm in the shower, I'm like, really now? Okay, and I have to run out and write things down, scribble things down. Or like the other week, I was with my dog, and I was stroking my dog, and I was just looking at her, and I was looking at her fur. I was like, how can something be so perfect? How can the lay of her fur be so perfect? And it's just those moments of, they are just aha moments where you just connect. And so for me, that they come in various places and times. Like I think I've had, we all have aha moments, don't we, through our life, I think, where we go, oh, I didn't really think of it that way. And yes, that connects and that makes sense. So I think the more I'm exploring the texts, and where I want to go in with a view of, hang on, rather than just looking at the cosmology is beautiful, but let me look at it with a different lens. Let me look at it with cosmology. Let me look at it with a political lens. What was happening to those people at that time for them to write the way that they were writing? Let me look at it from a societal perspective. What does the psychology about that tell us? And as I said, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, or these are my observations. And they're observations based on working with people for years in different organizations. And so for me, I look at them and think that's why that connects, and that's what that could look like. And I'm always really conscious to say, look, this is my thoughts. You can take it or leave it. I just want to present another idea that maybe makes you think about something in a slightly different way. And then you can go off and have your aha moments, because that's what it's about. It's us as individuals finding that path, but we're slowly finding a community of people who are open to look at things differently, rather than always the way that we've been told to look at things, that we've been taught to look at things. And I think critical thinking is a huge skill. I remember having to deliver sessions on critical thinking in organisations, and I never liked it. I never liked delivering critical thinking sessions. And I don't know why. I might have to delve into that. But critical thinking is such a skill to say, well, why do I think that way? Who's told me to think that way? Why have I been taught that way? What does that mean? What benefit is there for me to think that way, and to whom? And I think those are the questions more now than ever. I think perhaps in the 60s and 70s as well, actually, that it's really important to interrogate ourselves and our belief systems. And I remember always running a session around beliefs and values, saying, well, where did you get those values from? Because some of them you inherit, some of them you are environmental, they're from your parents, some of them are from your friends, and some of them are from TV. But how much of those have you taken on as though they are fully your own? And how many of them no longer serve you, the person that you are now? And I think that's really, and I don't think it's something that we do often enough, to say, why do I think that way? Why is that value important to me? Is that really my value?
I tend to think that the synthesis hasn't happened in the past because we weren't really looking at other belief systems other than our own. That's kind of the norm. We just
Look
reject.
outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm finding. I think when I look at the Gnostic texts, or when I look at other texts, or anything that's out there, there is a synergy. There is a synergy in what some of the texts are saying. And I think that's fascinating. Now, I am going on a bit of a journey at the moment with the Gnostics, insofar, and the Bible, actually, to a degree, where I'm thinking, rather than this being prophetic, this is an environmental, societal observation that these people were having in relationship to what was happening to them at that time. And I think we can draw so much from that to now, particularly with what we're seeing politically, the geopolitical, world that we're living in at the moment, with so many different things. And not wanting to comment on anything politically necessarily, but we're seeing what's playing out in the world, and the veil does seem to be thinning. And what I find fascinating, and sorry, this is just as an aside, the word apocalypse. So when we look at apocalyptic texts, when you think of the word apocalypse, what do you think of?
Oh, end of world, like total destruction. Yeah.
Yeah, total destruction. It actually means to uncover, to unveil. When you read those apocryphal texts, you think, actually, we've been told that this is prophecy, but actually it's more of an unveiling. It's more of this is what was happening. And they had to write texts in a particular way, because if they had written plainly what they thought, they could have been killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did code the messages in a way. They did use numbers to code the messages. You've got ancient Greek and Hebrew, where the alphabet is the same as the numbers. So you'll see things, translated into numbers as a code, but it actually would spell out a name. And they had to hide this what they were feeling, what they were thinking, that what was happening in their society through these texts. And I find that fascinating, because you can absolutely draw a parallel with what's happening now.
I also see that as like dream interpretation. If you interpret a dream, it can be interpreted in so many different ways. But how different are our lives than dreams? We can interpret our lives in multiple ways as well. So it just makes total sense to me that they wrote in a way that was, it was just one interpretation.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think I've been focusing on Revelation at the moment with the 666 or 616, because in some of the older texts it's 616. And actually, yes. Yeah, which is fascinating. And it depends on whether the name of the person that they're actually referring to, which is Nero, whether it's spelled in the Latin way or neuron or the Greek way. So depending on the number. So you'll actually find I think there was some older texts that were discovered fairly recently, which were saying 616 instead of 666, for example. But both ways would spell Nero depending on which alphabet you use. So
oh gosh, this and now I want to get into the symbology of Nero, but that's a whole nother.
I know.
Okay.
I know. And I'm working on that as a piece at the moment, because I'm just like, this is fascinating. This is amazing. This is so interesting. And this is where I'm sort of coming to this conclusion of some of these texts are the cosmology is beautiful and symbolic. And some of it is political conversation that's been hidden deliberately. So that the people who understood how the alphabet and the numbers worked would understand it, whereas the Romans wouldn't have had a clue. And I just think that's fascinating.
How would you describe then the content that you create on your Substack and your YouTube channel?
It's just stuff I love. That's all I can say. I think I look at the world and I see what's happening with the world, and I have a real love for humanity. I really do. I love people. I love the complexities of people. I have a lot of regard for how we evolve and how we develop and how agile we are to circumstances. But I'm also really interested in how easily, unfortunately, we can also be manipulated. And we see that a lot. We see it. We've seen it in the UK with the nudge unit. There's a book called The Nudge Unit, which explains how they can use psychology to, rather than telling people what to do, they can use psychology that influences you to go, oh, I am going to choose that rather than I'm going to choose that. And I love psychology. I think psychology is fantastic, but it's the same with anything. Use it for good. But sometimes it's not. And we can be manipulated, and now we're manipulated through so many different sources, through our algorithms, through the news that we hear, through, people are repeating rhetoric that they've heard, but there's no real evidence to support it, and there's no critical thinking or challenge.
In your book, you wrote, remember who you are. Remember what your attention is. Remember you are not powerless. You are the source of all the power they have taken. Take it back by choosing what to see. Choose what to feed. Yeah. Can you share a bit about your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all have a book in us, don't we? That's what they say. And I'm really grateful for you sending across your book. So I'm going to really look forward to reading that. But yeah, I think, again, it's this inner knowing, this sense of inner knowing. And I don't know necessarily how I can explain. I was just feeling so much. I was seeing what was happening on the political stage. And I felt quite helpless, seeing things happening. And I thought, what can I do? I feel like I'm just one person, and this doesn't feel right. And I think we can feed, like when I talk about the egregore, this energy where we can feed all our anger and we can feed all the things that are wrong in our life, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it takes on a life of its own. And before you know it, it's running away and you can't stop it. And I feel we know in the research, with certain platforms that unfortunately, us as people, we don't tend to scroll for all the lovely things. We are drawn to the salacious titles where something's happened and you're like, oh my gosh, like what's going on here? And you scroll and you scroll and scroll, and before you know it, that's all you're seeing. I take an example of this morning. I was just looking through some social media, and I was seeing things. I was like, why am I seeing all of this stuff? This is no good for me. This is no good for my brain. This I need
Right,
I
that
need
you
some,
recognize that, because so many
yeah.
people have no
But so many
idea.
people don't.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's part of it. We're fed. This is what I'm saying. Be careful what you feed. Be really conscious about, I'm not saying don't use social media, don't do all those things. That would be, hypocritical for me to say, because, here we are on YouTube, which is a media platform. But be conscious about what it is that you're seeing. Be conscious of yourself, what you're feeding, and what you allow to feed you. Because there's a power within that shapes you, and it's an external power. And so for me, the writing of the book, I was seeing all these things. I thought, I'm one person, what can I do? And I just felt this need to talk about something in a way that was told in a story that hopefully would reach people at another level. So similarly to the Gnostic texts and things like that, they're telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to tell a story of, how these architects had shaped the world that we live in. And they wanted it to do it in a particular way, that they did want to hide certain frequencies, which is our inner knowledge, our inner knowing, our connection to the earth, that very sacred connection to earth and source, to look at the divine feminine. Because my question is why are women in historical books or texts or biblical texts, why are they treated differently?
Or left out entirely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we're creators of life, and in some, in some religions, in some like histories that we have, women were revered, but that's shifted and changed. And I'm not saying, right, hang on, we're all goddesses. Well, we are, but why is that changed so much? What has caused that? And I was thinking about the patriarchy, and then I was thinking about other things, and I think I just wanted to pull it all into one place where people could see that they can choose differently. You don't have to follow this sort of salacious route of life. There's another whole world out there with beautiful people, and the majority of people, I think, are good. They have good hearts. Unfortunately, the voices that are amplified, the minority which are amplified, and they're amplified for a reason, because it sells, and it creates this disharmony. And I don't actually think we want to live in disharmony. I think people just want to get along.
Yeah.
I think people just want to be able to wake up in the morning, do whatever it is they're doing, enjoy their time with their family, enjoy what's outside, enjoy nature, but they're not given the opportunity to, because we're getting this interruption all the time. Which, no wonder there's such a huge impact on mental health. My thought around the patriarchy, for example, is actually it damages men just as much as, well, in a similar way, slightly similar but different way than it damages women. But who are these people that decided to create it like this, who hold all this power? And yet it's just trickled down and treated as, well, it's just the way it is. It's just the way things are. Why is this just the way things have to be? Why is that?
How dare you ask that question?
Yeah, I know. No, silence. Be quiet. But why does it have to be? And we're told, oh well, you can't do anything else because it would be chaos. It'd be chaos. Well, how do we know that? And actually, there are systems in other parts of the world, I've written about this too, where there are different systems at play that do work, but those aren't highlighted because that's good news.
Right.
And actually, what keeps the economy going doesn't seem to be good news. That doesn't, unfortunately, that doesn't.
Or fake news, so that it does keep the economy going.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think, and even the terms that we use about, woke, or that person's really woke. Fine, you can call me that if you want to, but all I'm saying is I'm looking at things and I'm asking questions about it. I'm not just accepting that as the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that. So if you want to label me as woke for doing that, go ahead. Absolutely go ahead. It's even when, you know, people say, oh, you're a heretic, or you're this, or you're that. Well, yeah, because the genuine word is to choose differently. So I'm okay with that too. And I think all the and that's the interesting thing about how these words have been weaponized to keep you in order. And I don't want to be in, I'm not going to break the law, I'm not going to break the rules, but I don't want to be in someone else's order. I want to find my own way. I have my own brain, my own thoughts, and which we all do. We just got to learn how to do it again. I appreciate my book might not be for everyone. I get that. It doesn't have to be. And I might rewrite it in a different way, because I wanted to write it in a mythical way, because I'm fascinated by those sorts of things. And I love that type of story. I want to be taken on a bit of a journey. I want things to be explained to me in ways that I can go, oh, that's you know, the magical resonance of vibration and the goddesses. And what I also find fascinating, sorry, I know I'm jumping back, is the goddesses that I feature within the book are in every single culture, but known by different names. And so every single culture has these divine goddesses that do certain things, but they have, and they're not related cultures. They would not have been related cultures in the time that they were written. So where does that come from? Where does that expression come from? Unless it's something that we intuitively know.
Something so deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that for me, I was like, hang on a minute. They're calling this person over here and this person over here, and they're doing the same thing. So yeah, and so I chose the 9. I don't know why. I actually don't know why I chose the 9, and I don't know why I chose 9 for binding. I don't, you know, I can't honestly tell you why. Maybe that's just my imagination, but for me, that felt really symbolic, and I don't know, and I still don't know why. So I can read my book again and go, where did that come from?
What would you say is your most important video ever? If you could narrow it down.
Oh my goodness, it is really difficult, because every one that I'm doing, I'm always most excited about. Every new one, I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. This is really good. This is like, you know, I'm excited by all of them that I'm researching and recording, because there's always something. But I think for me, they all connect. And even though I don't even realize it at the time, when I look back, I see the connection. And so in honesty, I'm just following the flow of where it takes me. I'd love to be able to say, I'm really ordered and I have a checklist of all the things that I'm going to do. And I do. I have a very loose line of videos that I want to record, all topics that I want to talk about. But then the moment will just take me, and I will be like, this, I need to write about this. I need to do this. I need to research this. And that's sort of how it happens. So I honestly, I'd love to be able to say to you, that one is my favorite, but because for me, they're one piece of work.
Okay, how about instead of your favorite, what would be maybe one that would be best for people to watch first?
I just looking at the stats, I would say that the most people are really, really fascinated by the Cathars. And I think that is a really good opening one, because one, it's a piece of history that people aren't necessarily aware of, or some people are aware of it and they're fascinated by, or intrigued, or feel so much, actually have so much empathy for that situation. And with those, there's lots of different political reads. There's lots of reads on it. There's the idea that this group of people, regardless of their beliefs, this group of people were seen to be outside the norm and therefore needed to be removed and silenced. Where else have we seen that?
I do want to revisit that topic a little bit later in the podcast if we have time. So
yeah, absolutely. I think for me, that's this group of people that need to be silenced. Where have we seen that happen before?
Yeah, and are we seeing it again?
Yeah. And for whatever reason, so some people will say, oh, it was a land grab. Yep, still wrong. You know, if it was because of their religious beliefs, still wrong. You know, for what happened. And some people will say, you know, I've had some emails, that's not what happened, that's not true. Well, the inquisitors documented, because they were, if they were anything, they were excellent at keeping records. In fact, they are the basis of the record keeping that we keep now. So what they created, the structure of how they created and how they looked at the different networks of people who was connected to that neighbor, to that neighbor, to find information. Where are we seeing that now? You know,
Right.
so that was the beginning. We just do it in a different way now. We do it with technology now, rather than lots of conversations. So I think that one is possibly one of the most powerful videos, in the sense that it gets people feeling something, whether they have high empathy, whether they resonate, whether they are sorrowful for those people that sort of went through that, whether they see it as the system suppressing the groups, the smaller groups, whether they see it as a religious aspect, you know, because the Cathars, the Perfecti, were a form of Christian, but they just weren't following the orthodoxy of that the church was trying to create at that time. And so I think that pulls on people in lots of different ways. And that is the idea, that I'm not saying you must believe this. I'm saying, look at what the history tells us, make up your own mind from that, and then look to see where else you can see that in history. And there's so much. There's so much. It's a pattern. And I love a pattern.
Your videos, I find, are very direct and real, very much like this, actually. You just talk directly. Pure substance. What kind of responses are you getting from people?
The majority are wonderful, really, really wonderful. I'm not going to lie. There are some comments, because I am human. There are some comments which I think people are, and I think maybe this is something that I need to get better at. Well, a number of things that I always need to get better at, but I want to make it really clear. I'm presenting this information. You can take it or you can leave it. I am not attacking your faith, your religion, or anything. I'm just presenting information. I think if you have faith in something, as I think I said at the top of this session, is that's wonderful. If it keeps you warm and it gives you purpose and it gives you comfort,
Yeah,
do
but
that.
you know what, Claire, they're not going to hear that if you're threatening their paradigm. The one, you know, they're not even going to hear you say that.
No, it's true. And I think that's, you know, I've been called, what was one of the comments was, you have you speak so nicely and so softly, but you have the tongue of a serpent. And I was
yes, I saw that comment.
I was like, oh, okay. And this sort of questioned my you know, my belief systems. And I really tried to be clear that I don't fall one way or another. I have my internal beliefs, which are mine. I don't want to say, well, you must have mine now. You must believe in what I believe. Not at all. I have a genuine interest. And as I said, there is a synergy across so many religions, that the truth within that is about love and connection. And that's it for me. You know, it's nurturing, understanding our love and our connection to each other, regardless of faith, regardless of creed, regardless of, you know, where you're from. Don't allow the powers that be, because there are, to infiltrate your mind, to turn you against your neighbours, rather than looking up. And I suppose that's, you know, yes, that's heretical. Yes, that might make me a witch. That, you know, because these are some of the things I hear. I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. You know, I had a partner who called me a Fenian. You know, and he wasn't saying it in a horrible way. He was saying, you know, you're jokingly, you're a Fenian, because he was from the north of Ireland, and obviously was Protestant.
What is Fenian? I'm not sure.
Well, So
I know, or that an
in
audience would know.
in certain parts of the UK and Ireland, might have to be careful about this, but obviously you've got the Protestants versus the Catholics, and I'm not going to get into that because that's very dark territory. But Fenian was considered to be a slur for Catholics,
Oh, okay.
but the real meaning of Fenian was an ancient warrior. And I'm like, you can call me that, and I'll own that too. I'll own that too. So this is my point of how language has been distorted and weaponized.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can only accept that as that might be someone's intention to give me a slur, but I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with that though, because I know what that means. So
Yeah,
I own that.
that's
So
valid.
that can be troubling, but overwhelmingly, the people have been, the audience and the people out in the world have been really positive, because I think the veil is thinning. People are seeing, people are questioning more. And what we don't need is another guru telling us how to think or what to think, because that's just replacing one system with another. I think this is this time now, and we're in a really good time where people are saying, actually, I want to follow my own beliefs. I want to do the work myself. I want to, and that's all I would ever encourage. Go and research this yourself, but don't just look at it with one lens. If there's anything prescriptive, I would say, don't look at it with one lens, look at it with several lenses, because nothing is black and white. And I think the idea of polarization in our communities is to try to make things black and white. You're suffering because of what they did. And that's so easy, isn't it?
So
because then
easy.
you feel so easy, and then you can feel really righteous when you're, digging at that person.
It's like your
And
most recent video
the
about
shadow,
the
yeah,
need for the enemy, right? The need.
yes, yeah, and it's almost like it's planted for us sometimes. That social identity piece, and Rene Girard, and all that we need someone to be the scapegoat, and perhaps we do, but why? And can we change that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer.
So when you were talking about the Cathars,
Yes.
the whole thing with them was that we don't need an intermediary.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And some of the quotes that I was hearing in my head, like what you bring forth from within will save you, but what you don't will be your destruction. That's in one of the
Yes.
not Gospels, correct?
Yes.
And then that our power must be expressed, and that the kingdom is within. And then that meaning of heresy, which is opting out.
It's alternative choice.
Alternative choice. That's opting out. And for me too, like listening to your videos, it's like it makes all these things click for me too, like what's happening in the world. And so when I was watching that video, it was like, it just put so many things together. In another video about the Watchers, it seems like the Watchers are warning us not to interfere with the natural unfolding of things, which is our tendency. Is we look out and we see things going wrong, or that we want to control or fix even. And it seems like they're warning, they got involved, right? And it ended up being a corruption because they weren't supposed to get involved. For me, like, it spoke to a lot of my my experiences in non-duality and meditation and that kind of side of things. Do you see that parallel, and could you interpret that as like a warning to let things unfold, as opposed to want to fix or protest or here?
I know there's so many aspects. So obviously the Book of Enoch and the Book of Watches within Enoch, or the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Ethiopian Bible. Prior to that book, there was another book or another tablet, another teaching the Sumerian texts. And I'm gonna do a piece on that, because again, you think it's something, you go, okay, that's solid, and then you search a little bit more, and then there's something else behind it, and you're like, and they had a different interpretation of the watches. The watches were actually teachers.
Of course, yeah.
And again, the reason for that is the political. So the people that were under this, like these Sumerian texts, they were at war with the people in Mesopotamia. And when they finally sort of released, and they created their own version of the watches, but they turned them into something else. Okay, the warning, they turned them into the warning. So you've got one great sort of empire with these wonderful teachers of everything. And then the people who were suppressed underneath that empire took something away and then rewrote something, and they became the corruption. Okay, so that's important to look at in context when you look at these texts. I think then when you can look at, and I'm not a quantum mechanical person, my brain, it gets very warped, but so I have to think about it in really simplest terms, that something only becomes when it's observed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it melts my brain. To go down these rabbit holes. That something only becomes once it's observed. So with the watches, why would an all-seeing God need the watches to watch anyway? Why? And unless it was a part of that, their observation allowed it to become. So if their observation, had they not intervened, it would have just become. And the watches were divine in some way, shape or form. So you would hope that with that, they would have just become and evolved. But they did intervene, and they did bring this corruption. And so my question was like, well, why weren't we privy to this knowledge? Why weren't we ready? Why weren't we good enough? What were they scared of? And I think it boils down to, in my simplistic way of thinking about things, is anything that we get, anything that we learn, can be used for good and not so good. Mm-hmm. All of these skills that we have. And that's our autonomy, that's our inner, that chooses how to interpret something. So I don't necessarily think that when the watch is brought down, makeup, cosmetics, astrology, or whatever it was necessarily a bad bad learning, bad teaching, corrupt. It's on the individual, on how we use that. And that's the same with anything, any power that's given. How are you going to use that power? We see billionaires and trillionaires. How are they using it to benefit society or not?
And AI, and this is very topical to what's going on with AI right now.
Yeah.
What are your have you delved into some of the connections there that you're?
Yeah, and I think this is one that's going to unfold, and I absolutely understand why some people are fearful, because what we tend to see in society is do you remember way back when, before we had mobile phones? I do. And they were like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing we can do. Where would we be now without our mobile phones? But before we knew it, mobile phones became more than just a way to phone your mum or phone your sister or phone, your daughter, whatever. They've become everything. There are banking apps, there are how we book things. We can't enter certain places without them. That was all without our consent. It just happened because it was just the turn of events. Well, that's just how we do things now. And I can go on to a completely different thing of even GP surgeries here in the UK. You have to use your laptop. And I'm thinking, somebody who's 90 years old wants to pick up the phone and speak to someone. They're not necessarily going to be laptop savvy to be able to book an appointment. And it becomes a restriction, but it's being pushed out. No, you have to be digital. You have to be. And so if you do want to think differently and you don't want to be on grid, how are you going to access the services that you should be able to access? And so I think with AI, similarly, is that it can be used for good. There are benefits to it. But the other side of it, and what I was reading the other day, and I thought this is a really interesting aspect, is they've taken all of our knowledge, all of our being, all our humanness without our consent and fed it into this thing, and then they're selling it back to us.
Yeah, there's that.
There's that. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. And so I'm not on the fence. I think I do have some views. I think it's a tool. Anything is a tool. It's always about how it's going to be used. And unfortunately, we've seen how things have been used in the past, and by bad actors. Whether it's their intention to be bad actors, I don't know. And we're seeing some of the rhetoric out there, right, by some of these sort of people who are pushing AI and saying it's the next level of human consciousness, it's this, it's that. I'm all about advancement. I'm all about advanced medical advancement for people. I think if you can help someone with some technology, that's wonderful. And that's one thing. But before you know it, it becomes, and that's without our consent. We don't have any sort of election about it. We don't have any referendum. It just happens and it's put upon us and we just accept and we consent.
I wonder if you've heard of Greg Braden.
Now, have I heard? Tell me more. Tell me more.
Okay, so I don't exactly know how to define him. He was a geologist, but he also has worked. He's just a really great science mind. But one of the things, a video that he recently made was that there are calls to rewrite the Bible using AI. I would be interested in your thoughts on that.
Oh, gosh. One, why?
Yeah.
What's the need? What benefit does it serve to do that? It might be interesting. It might just be interesting just to see what happens with that.
Yes.
Right. As in what AI with its brain and access to knowledge, what it would make of it. But then, literally as an experiment, yeah, it's interesting. But then what? Then how's it going to be used? Is that then going to be pushed into schools and to, that's fine, be curious to understand, but then what?
Yeah, and I'll say it, that don't force your own belief system or paradigm, whatever, onto everyone
else. Allow people to interpret it the way that they do. Okay, sometimes it is interpreted in a not so great way, and I don't think it was ever put together. Those texts were ever put together to cause harm to others. If whether you believe in source, in God, or whoever it is that you believe in, surely that source would never want to cause harm to others. In fact, when you look at the underlying teachings, it's never not truly about opposing, people being polarized against each other. Those, regardless of what you believe, that's a beautiful teaching. Whether you follow the Bible or not, that's the fact that we're here to support and connect, to love one another. That's a good teaching. So yes, so having an artificial intelligence's perspective might be interesting. It might tell us something that we weren't aware of before. It might get us to think differently about something. I'm all up for that. But then allow us to still continue to interpret it how we want to interpret it, and what resonates for us, based on our experiences and our environments.
Yep.
And our journey, and I hate saying our journey, but it's our life path of discovery and curiosity that we're here to learn and evolve, and we connect, we become who we are in relationship to other people. So we're not just on our own. We're not solo travelers. And I think the difficulty with AI is it lacks nuance.
Yeah.
And which is absolutely human. We are, they could get our brains and put them into a computer, but there's this nuance of feeling, of environment, of emotion, of connection, of what's happened to us in the morning that changes how we present, how we are, how we feel that day. And I think that's what AI lacks. It's the nuance of our consciousness, I think, is what can't be captured, and our attention. So I bring in a lot of Simone Weil into this about that attention. Our attention is our most generous form of gift when we're purely in a place with someone and we're listening and we're giving them our attention. It's the best gift, and we're so short of it now. And the attention economy is what they are. I say they because, and it's like, who is this they? But this with the algorithms, and you can get pulled in and you end up watching video after video of it. That's our attention, and it gives them money.
It's energy.
Yeah. And so I think the keenest thing is love, connection. Be aware of what you're feeding, be aware of what you're giving your attention to, because our attention is still our own gift to give. And so we just got to choose how we want to give that gift wisely.
So where can people find you if they want to know more about you or find your work?
Right. Okay. So obviously on YouTube, it's The Conscious Radical. And I also have another site, which is my consultancy site. So people have been contacting me through that. But I am now in the process of building a Conscious Radical website. So people will be able to find me and connect with me, send me emails. People have been sending me emails anyway, which is wonderful. And I do read them all. I don't get to respond to every single one. Some of them are really long, detailed emails as well, which are fantastic.
Thank you for responding to mine.
Oh, you are so welcome. You're so welcome. I look at them and sometimes I'll sit on them. There's one that I'm sitting on at the moment, and somebody really interrogated one of my pieces on Substack. So you can also see me on Substack too. So I think it's just Claire Salerno on Substack actually. But they really interrogated my work in a really positive way, and I was so excited to read it. But I'm still sitting on it because I want to go back to them with, firstly, thank you. This is wonderful and so welcome. But it spurred me to think more. And so I'm very grateful for that. But that has also made me think, actually, I do need to create a website for people to be able to go on. I have no clue what I'm going to be putting on the website. I think I just need a holding space where people, if they are interested to find out more about what I'm doing, or what I'm reading at the moment, or anything along those lines, or they want to give me some ideas of things that they think I should be looking at, I'm open for it, because I don't know what I don't know. And I am always astounded by some of the comments where people are saying, have you thought about this, or have you looked at it in this way? And I just think that for me is just beautiful and a light bulb. And if it's getting people thinking and connecting and sharing with each other, then my work here is done. That's the key thing. So I'm really open for people to be able to connect, to share their journeys as well, because even through that, you're helping other people, whether you realize it or not. So
I enjoy reading some of the comments on your videos.
They're really good, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, I just want you to know, I feel like your work, what you're doing, is so critical to these times and such a beautiful service. And
Thank you.
However you're opening yourself up to out of your love for this, and just to channel whatever's happening through you, really powerful stuff.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it, because you do, I'm human, and I have moments of like, why am I doing this? Like, why? But I can't, not that I'm compelled, compelled would be the wrong word, but I can't, I feel like this need to share this information. And I feel like my whole life has been leading up to this point to share in this way. And I've been lucky enough to work in some brilliant organizations and with people and individuals, and really get to understand what's going on for people, the real life issues of people. But now I feel like this is my time to actually have my say about things. But I really don't want to try and influence people in any particular way. I would just like them to think about things differently. Don't take everything that you see, including me, on face value. Do the research, think about it, sit in a space, go for a walk in nature, see what happens. When you hear what I say, you might disagree with it. That's absolutely fine. Why do you disagree with it? Where does it take you? What are the thoughts? What is it in you that you're feeling inside that's making you feel angry or anxious about that? Question that. See where that's coming from. Explore that, because that's part of your shadow. That's part of the bag that you're carrying along. Where did you learn that? Who wanted you to think that way? What's the benefit of that? It's just questioning, what we know, and being uncomfortable in uncertainty.
Yeah.
Because I know we want certainty. Of course we do. And I've always been, it has to be one way or another. I'm becoming more comfortable in sitting in, I don't know yet. But I'm learning and I'm absorbing. And if someone comes back, particularly in one of the comments, and says, another bit of learning or another aspect, I'm open to take that on board. I'm not going to say, I'm sorry, but I disagree with that. I'm like, that's really interesting. Like, how did you get to that way of thinking? Because by exploring that's how we can explore connection, rather than saying, no, that's you, this is me, and we're different. Like, enough of that. We've done that. That doesn't work.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And thank you for allowing me to come on and chat with you, because it's wonderful.
I want to thank you so much for listening today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed how Claire's work illuminates the parallels in ancient wisdom and current societal situations challenging humanity's awakening. She asks an important question in her book. What will you choose to build in the space the old world left behind? What an inspiration to all of us wanting to align with our natural gifts and live in service to the higher qualities of harmony, beauty, peace, truth, and healing.